Hey guys, thank you so much for jogging on over here to Two Awesome Men. This movie came out a while ago. We actually saw it a while ago too. We saw
the opening weekend.
Yeah, we saw it the opening weekend. But because, like, if you saw our past few videos, we were working on our ranking of the 2020 movies because we were lazy in the first place, and it took us forever to actually finish that video. So that kind of got in the way. And so hopefully, with us being done with that, we'll be good to go with more videos. And also, just so you know, since this movie is so old, I say it's like so old, but like
so old, back in the 70s.
But like, this movie is like about a month old, right? We're gonna go ahead and probably not gonna go heavily into spoilers, but we're not gonna like shy away from them either. Mm-hmm. So just be warned on that.
And we do want to start with this review with a lot of the positives that we have, and I think one of the biggest positives for this movie for me was the choreography and the fight scenes. Mm-hmm. It had some of the best fight scenes in the MCU, in my opinion, especially the hand-to-hand stuff. A lot of the hand-to-hand combat was pretty great. Honestly, it gives me really hope if Daredevil ever does come into the MCU, that they can keep that level of fight scenes that they had in the Netflix show. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it really was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
In particular, one of my favorite things, the fight scene wise, there's this fight scene on like the side of a building. Oh yeah, and honestly, it was pretty amazing, and it's just really fun. Like, all the fight scenes are really fun. I think, was it Chris Stuckman who said some of the best fight scenes since, like, what do you say, the Winter Soldier?
Oh yeah,
you know. And I will say, yeah, because like the fight scenes, like you said, the choreography is just amazing. And then also, I just want to go on and move on a little bit into the characters. I felt like the characters were pretty well written. And I guess overall, it does lead into the fact that this movie is just a fun movie in general. I do love, and I think you're saying that at first, like, cause Zach's seen it twice. I've only seen it one time. That the end fight scene, the whole end scene, you weren't like a huge fan of at first. I actually liked it. I guess I've only seen it once, but in that first time, I actually liked the end scene. I felt like it built a lot of the characters up and a lot of the character relationships. Mm-hmm. And also, I just felt like it was a really fun scene just in general.
And I will also say that the villain, Wen Wu, well, technically the Mandarin, but he didn't call himself the Mandarin. His motivation in this movie, at least, his quest, I guess you could say, was actually kind of really relatable. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like this evil plan that he had. I mean, he was going to use evil means to accomplish it if he needed to. But the basis of it was really relatable.
And I really do think the two, like, as far as that's one of the biggest strengths of the movie. The two biggest strengths to me was both the fight scenes and then the characters and the relationship of the characters.
Right.
I feel like they did those pretty decently well, and made you have like a certain amount of like empathy for those characters. You felt for them, at least.
Right. And I also really liked how Shang-Chi and Awkwafina's character, I can't remember her character's name, but I like that they didn't push like a romance between them. Yeah. Because usually in these kind of movies, they do whenever there's a male and female lead, they try to make a romantic relationship between them. But I like that. I mean, they might pursue that in the future of the movies. But I like how they kept it just a friendship in this movie.
Yeah, and I like how at the beginning they almost made like a joke about it.
Yeah.
But it was just, that was it, you know. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, like you said, maybe it'll happen later, but it never felt like it was pushed here. And it was cool because in most of the time you'll have like the first movie with the characters, they're trying to push this romantic relationship. I do think that if they do pursue them having a romantic relationship later on, this could actually work better.
Yeah.
Because in a sense, you're not catching them at that time where they like each other.
Right.
You're catching them at a friendship. You know, you're going to see that friendship start off, and you're going to see it build up. Mm-hmm. You know, and so I think that in that way it'll actually work kind of better. And then a movie like this, with a Marvel movie, you always want to bring up the CGI, obviously, you know, because a lot of these Marvel movies are just a whole bunch of CGI fest. And I'm not saying that as an insult. A lot of people do have problems with movies that have a lot of CGI, but like, what else are you gonna do? You know,
right, yeah. You can't really have a real dragon.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what else are you gonna do? I mean, you can, like, old movies, you do claymation and stuff like that, but at this point in time, you know, it looks, I mean, maybe they can make it look good, but like it would look kind of strange. But for the most part, I do think the CGI really worked in this film. There little moments where it was kind of a little rocky.
Yeah, and yeah, like I mentioned in our Loki review, there's a lot of times in a lot of recent Marvel movies where just like there's a scene, there's a handful of scenes throughout where there's like a really bad green screen.
Yeah.
And there's a few in here too. So I don't know why it's a trend that keeps happening with Marvel, but I wish they would fix it because otherwise the CGI is great.
Yeah. And I will say, thankfully, when it comes to those scenes, it was never like extremely overbearing. You know, it wasn't enough for me to like, to take me out of the movie completely. I just kind of noticed it, you know. And so, yeah, the CGI, I will say, was pretty good. I wouldn't say it was one of the best, like, as far as CGI, as opposed to, like, I don't know, like Endgame and Infinity War, other than the Mark Ruffalo and the Hulkbuster costume.
Right.
But overall, yeah, the CGI was pretty good. And I do also want to make sure I get into the acting a little bit. For the most part, I do think the acting was really good, especially the acting from the Mandarin, you know, the father. I feel like his acting was actually really good.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool because I could be wrong, but I think that's the actor's first American movie. He's been in a lot of movies like overseas, but I think this was his first American movie.
Yeah, and I really liked his acting, and overall, like I said, the acting is pretty good. But I will say that because that does kind of bring me to my negatives a little bit. I don't think it was horrible. But the acting from the guy who played Shang-Chi, I really need to look up these actors' names because
I think Simu Liu.
Simu Liu, yeah.
So I'm sorry if I mispronounced that.
Yeah, but I felt like his acting wasn't terrible, you know. But it kind of really felt like he was kind of starting to first. I don't know what movies he's been in, but it doesn't really feel like he's been, at least in this scale of film. I'm not sure. And so his acting at times felt a little rocky. It never felt really completely sincere, but it was never like overbearing to where it like completely took away from his scenes or completely took away from the movie.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah. And I do think his acting does show a potential to where if he just practiced it a little bit more and work on it, he could become a pretty good actor and really, you know, shine in the MCU.
And now that we're on the negatives, I do want to bring out some of my biggest negatives about this movie. And one of the biggest negatives, especially on the first watch, was this movie was very exposition heavy. Like it honestly got to a point to where it felt like it was just like exposition, then fight scene, exposition, fight scene, and just kind of repeated over and over again. And I mean, exposition is important, but it felt like this entire movie, like every other scene, was somebody explaining something important.
Yeah, exactly.
For us to understand what's going on. It did get a little bit better the second watch, but I think one of the main things is like at the end of the second act, there's a scene between Shang-Chi and Awkwafina's character, and they show a flashback that Shang-Chi had with his father. And that scene, on the first time I watched it, I was like, yes, finally, something to actually get me emotionally attached to these characters, because all the exposition beforehand kind of made it hard to get emotionally attached to a lot of these characters. But that flashback scene at the end of the second act really helped me finally get into this movie. I mean, I was pretty into it, but it finally made me really get into it.
Yeah.
And then having watched that scene going into the second watch, it kind of made it a little bit better knowing kind of the backstory, because it kind of filled in some of the gaps that you didn't really know beforehand. So it made the second viewing a little bit better, but at the same time, I don't know if I should credit the movie for that, or
especially since it's probably like you already knew it was happening, so you kind of now like, okay, now I feel for it,
right?
And I will say, my first viewing, I did feel for the characters a decent amount, not a whole lot, but I feel like if it wasn't for those exposition scenes, I would have felt for them a lot more, because exposition scenes, I think a few of them are okay. There's nothing wrong with a few exposition scenes. Sometimes it's hard, especially these kind of movies, to not have any exposition scenes.
Right, yeah.
But I think the problem is how, like you said, how many it had. It seemed like it was just over and over exposition, like trying to get us to pass to these characters, which I think is important, but I don't think it's always necessary to show a full scene of exposition.
Right, and I think a big thing about, which, I mean, I can understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to make Shang-Chi out to be this normal guy, but then reveal that he had this past. But I feel like it kind of was a hindrance to the movie, because then they had to go back and explain what happened in the past, instead of just showing it chronologically in order.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is true. And I do think that they could have just shown it in chronological order. Or even, like, I feel like some of the scenes probably could have not even been shown. There's always ways to do visual storytelling really well. And I feel like for a little bit, Marvel there was kind of picking up on it and doing a little bit better with visual storytelling instead of just full-on exposition scenes, or at least implementing them in a little little better.
Right.
A lot of these exposition scenes just weren't implemented that well, and it really slowed down the momentum of the movie. And I'm not just saying like I'm not saying just like the momentum of like the fast-paced action scenes. Whenever a movie, every scene has some kind of momentum towards it. Even the slow-paced scenes, there's momentum, the momentum of building a relationship with these people, you know. And so with the characters, and so like the scene whenever Shang-Chi is with his father, you know, you're building this relationship, but when there's like a random exposition scene thrown in there, it stops that, you know. And right. I think that is a problem. It probably was my biggest issue with this whole movie. Unfortunately, even though it is like one issue, it's a big issue.
Yeah, especially because it happened throughout the entire movie.
And it's an issue with the core of the movie, not just like a little flaw. It's the core of the film that I really had an issue with, of the fact that there were so many exposition scenes, so many times where they felt like they had to explain stuff in such a detail that took up so much time. And it just really did take away a pretty decent amount from the movie. Not saying I don't like this movie. I do think it was a solid film.
And then another negative that had, it's not as big as that one we just talked about, but it is still kind of a negative for me. And I don't think it affected you that much. But the first half of the movie, like we said, it had some of the best hand-to-hand combat scenes in the entire movie, or in the entire MCU. But then like halfway through the movie, it kind of goes away from that. And then the end, which is like you brought up earlier, which is why I wasn't a huge fan of the finale, because it was just a bunch of CGI and not what the first half of the movie kind of sold me on. I don't mind all the CGI at the end. I do really wish that Shang-Chi and his father at least got one hand-to-hand fight without the rings or CGI and all that, kind of like the hand-to-hand fights that were in the first half of the movie. I do wish they got at least one of those in the finale of the movie before all the CGI-ness. I don't mind the CGI coming in there later, but I do wish it kind of had a more not intimate, what's the word?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
More emotional, I guess.
Yeah.
Fight than just a CGI with all the rings and all that.
Yeah, I can see that actually. Yeah, I you know, in all honesty, after seeing this movie, it's been so long since we've seen this movie.
Yeah, it's been about a month now.
Yeah, honestly, I do remember. There's a lot of times whenever I watch movies and I'll have like an issue with it and I'll just forget. Forget about it.
Right.
I do remember that. It's like I wish they kind of had like an actual fight. I understand that the rings are a big deal.
Yeah.
But like you said, like the whole movie, there's a lot of hand-to-hand fighting, and you know, you kind of want that one hand-to-hand fight with a dad.
Right.
I will say though, I do love that. Even though it wasn't a hand-to-hand fight, you know, I love the scene whenever like the dad, like the dragon, like grabs the dad.
Oh yeah.
And the dad kind of like looks at the son, like you know, and they kind of have that moment, and he has that moment of redemption, and they have that moment of father and son finally, you know,
right?
That kind of feeling. I do like that ending. Well, overall, guys, I'm sorry that we didn't like love this movie as much as some people do. I understand why people love this movie. It honestly is a really fun movie, and if you're able to look at this movie from, you know, the lens of like you don't mind that exposition, because the exposition scenes are actually really good. Most of the scenes for the most part are really good in this movie. It's just that the exposition scenes kind of took away from the movie for us. And if you're able to look in that lens where the idea of exposition scenes don't ruin stuff for you, it can be a pretty good movie. You know, if you're able to like kind of look at everything in like chronological order,
right,
and put it together in your mind like that, and be able to enjoy that, that's fine. I understand, because like I said, most of the scenes are really well written. The whole movie's really well written. It's just that, you know, they kind of just took away a little bit from us.
Yeah, and it honestly did get me excited for Shang-Chi to be in the MCU, and I'm kind of excited to see what they do with him and the Ten Rings, and they kind of hinted at the Ten Rings having a big past, and that they came from somewhere that's probably going to be big in the future. So it is exciting to see what they do with all this that was brought up in this movie in the future. And it is kind of funny because they didn't really bring up the Ten Rings. I mean, they did, but like how in the very first Iron Man movie, how he was kidnapped by the Ten Rings.
Oh yeah, that's right.
They never really explained. I mean, I guess you could say that it was just Killian's fake Ten Rings, which they kind of alluded to in this movie. But if it was Wenwu's actual Ten Rings, I kind of want to know why or the history behind that.
Yeah.
But it was probably just Killian's Ten Rings, maybe. Yeah.
We are going to say that Shang-Chi and the Legend of the two.
The Two Rings.
I'm thinking of that Two Strings movie. Every time I say
Kubo and the Two Strings.
Every time I say this, I always think the Two Strings. we're going to say that Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is 70% awesome. Well, guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, comment and let us know what you thought about this video, and also let us know what you thought about Shang-Chi. Maybe even tell us where you would rank this in here. What were your problems, and what were your favorite parts about this movie?
And don't forget to follow us on social media. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and TikTok.
That's right, yeah.
I forgot about the
TikTok.
All at 2 Awesome Men.
And as always, thank you so much for watching, and you will see us later.